By the time the rescue dogs tracked 26-year-old Australian tourist Sally Contarino, the Nevada sun had already baked the earth at temperatures greater than 100 degrees for 7 full days. In the brutal Las Vegas heat, these scent trails vanish in hours. Yet, over 6 miles up State Route 1571, the dogs locked onto a patch of disturbed brush, an indentation in the dust where someone had stepped off the blazing asphalt to rest. The scent belonged to Sally Grace Contarino. From that place in the dirt, the trail vanished. The highway stretched forward toward the towering peaks of the Spring Mountains while the heat haze of the Las Vegas Valley loomed behind. No footprints led deeper into the brush. There were no water bottles or any other signs of her down the path. The scent didn't fade into the wilderness. It stopped at the edge of the asphalt. The ravine off Kyle Canyon Road is the last known place where Sally Contarino was. Everything before that has been documented in security footage, text messages, and receipts. Everything after that is a pitch black void. Sally Contarino arrived in Las Vegas on June 13th, 2026. At 26 years old, the Melbourne native was an experienced solo traveler. She loved the American Southwest. Friends and family described her as independent, intelligent, with a sharp sense of humor. And she would maintain regular communication with her family back in Australia. She had a slim build, fair skin, brown hair, and brown eyes. She had stayed at the Bungalows Hostel. It's at the edge of the city's arts district, and the hostel is a hipster enclave that is housed in a renovated 1930s property, popular among backpackers because it's affordable and it has a communal atmosphere. For a week, Sally moved through the city of Las Vegas with the confidence of a local, and she spent her days exploring the urban and natural areas of the Las Vegas Valley. The footprint of her final days is unsettling because it appears to be mundane. On June 19th, security footage captured her walking alone down the street after having dinner at Timber's Bar and Grill. This is a local establishment that's removed from the tourist-heavy Las Vegas Strip. Another piece of video footage came out online shortly after her disappearance, which was captured by a local content creator wearing smart glasses. The video shows the man approaching Sally. She is polite, but clearly attempts to disengage. She claims she has a boyfriend. She's obviously trying to de-escalate the situation. But the man continues to press her, asking if she is waiting for him. The Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department quickly ruled the interaction out as a factor in her disappearance, but the footage casts a dark shadow over her final days. She was being watched, recorded, and documented by the surveillance cameras of modern Las Vegas. Less than 48 hours later, she would slip completely through the cracks of that system. She began the morning of June 20th, 2026 with a clear plan. Sally checked out of the Bungalows Hostel and approached the front desk to ask if they could hold her luggage. She told them she would return for it later in the day as she had booked a bus to Los Angeles the following morning to catch her June 21st flight home to Melbourne. Before leaving the hostel, she sent a text message to a friend in Australia. The message said, "I'm about to hike up Lone Mountain, then go home. I fly back tomorrow." Another text message mentioned she had a jacket and a water bottle. So she was prepared for the hike. The text message is strange though, because Lone Mountain and the area where she was tracked are on two different sides of the city of Las Vegas. Lone Mountain is in the northwest suburbs of Las Vegas. The mountain is about 600 feet above the surrounding residential neighborhoods. It has a 2.7-mile loop trail that is flat with a brief trail to the summit of the mountain. It's well-traveled, where hikers are never truly alone. Sally told her friend she was going to Lone Mountain, but the evidence contradicts that that's what she did. Surveillance footage captured her at Smith's Marketplace grocery store located in the Sky Canyon community, miles away from Lone Mountain. The footage shows her dressed in shorts, sneakers, and a light jacket that is for sun protection. She's buying bottled water and protein bars. From Smith's Marketplace, Lone Mountain was behind her, and ahead of her is Kyle Canyon Road, State Route 157, a highway that leads directly into the Spring Mountains and towards the towering 11,916-foot peak of Mount Charleston. The distance between the grocery store and Mount Charleston is about 19 miles, and it's a brutal elevation gain of over 3,000 feet. What happened? Did she board the wrong bus and end up at Sky Canyon and decide to pivot her plans rather than head back? Did she think that she could casually hike the 19 miles up a mountain highway in 100-degree heat before catching a flight the next day? Or did she plan to hitchhike up the canyon? Whatever caused her change in plans, the surveillance cameras at Smith's Marketplace show her walking away from the shopping center, heading west down the asphalt of Kyle Canyon Road. She was walking directly into a furnace. The Las Vegas Valley was in the grip of an extreme heat wave. The National Weather Service had issued excessive heat warnings saying that the temperatures were running 8 to 12 degrees above seasonal norms. The NWS warned of a major heat risk that would affect anyone without adequate access to cooling and water. Being outside for a short period of time could test the limits of human endurance. State Route 157 is made of black asphalt and cuts through the desert. There's no shade. It's a direct uphill path from the desert floor into the Humboldt National Forest. The surrounding area has some brush and barren dirt. On a day when the ambient temperature hits 102 degrees, the surface temperature on the asphalt can easily exceed 140 degrees Fahrenheit. A person walking on this surface would have to face incredible heat. Sally Contarino walked about 6.2 miles up this incline. She was likely exposed to that direct heat for over 2 hours. The human body is good at cooling itself. It uses the evaporation of sweat to regulate core temperatures. But in the incredible hyper-arid environment of the Mojave Desert, the sweat evaporates instantly, which makes sweating not very effective. As Sally marched further up the canyon, her body would have been in a battle against the environment. Exertional heat stroke happens when the metabolic heat production combined with environmental heat load overwhelms the body. It's the third leading cause of death in athletes during physical activity. It can cause the brain to misfire. Symptoms include disorientation, emotional instability, and a loss of physical coordination. In the grip of VHS, a person loses all capacity for rational decision making. They may wander blindly off a clearly marked road into a desert, driven by panic. The scent dogs found the spot where Sally stepped off the road and sat down in a small ravine. Given the extreme conditions, the elevation gain, and the distance that she had walked, it's likely that she was experiencing the onset of heat exhaustion and maybe even exertional heat stroke. Police search plans for missing adults require rapid response when environmental factors suggest danger. In the lethal heat of the Nevada desert, it was posing a life-threatening risk. So the investigation had to escalate quickly. Red Rock Search and Rescue is a specialized volunteer organization operating in Clark County, and it was deployed alongside law enforcement. They used aerial drones with thermal imaging, off-road vehicles, and canine units to blanket the lower canyon. The use of scent dogs in this environment is a race against time and thermodynamics. The extreme heat and UV radiation destroys organic compounds quickly. Despite the limitations, the dogs tracked Sally from Smith's Marketplace up the side of State Route 157 to the ravine, 6.2 miles away. If she'd continued walking off in the desert in a state of heat-induced delirium, the dogs would have traced her further into the brush. If she'd collapsed and succumbed to the elements nearby, the grid searches and drone flights would have likely located her remains. But the abrupt end of the canine scent track at the edge of the highway suggests that somebody picked her up. Did a passing motorist see a young woman sitting in a ravine suffering from the heat and pull over to offer a ride? Kyle Canyon Road is a busy street for residents and tourists traveling from the Las Vegas Valley to the cooler areas of Mount Charleston. On a Saturday in late June, traffic heading up to the mountain to escape the 102-degree heat would have been steady. It's possible that Sally realized that she had underestimated the 19-mile walk and how bad the heat was and took a ride from a passing vehicle. But where did the vehicle take her? If the driver was a good Samaritan, they would have driven her to her intended destination, the Mount Charleston Visitor Center or trailheads, or back down into the city. But she never checked in at the visitor center, and she never returned to the Bungalows Hostel to get her bags. Internet sleuths have come up with theories of organized human trafficking. They pointed to the Meta Glasses video and the transient nature of Las Vegas as proof of a coordinated abduction. But this is highly improbable. Human trafficking networks target vulnerable individuals, undocumented people, runaways, or those disconnected from social support systems, because their absence would go unreported for weeks or even months. Sally Contarino was the opposite of an ideal target. She was a foreign national with a documented itinerary. She was in daily communication with her family in Australia. She was scheduled to board an international flight the next day. Abducting a victim who would trigger an immediate high-profile international police search within 24 hours is counter to the operation security of any organized criminal organization. If foul play was involved in the disappearance of Sally, it was almost certainly a crime of opportunity, not a coordinated trafficking operation. A lone predator driving up the mountains, spotting a woman alone in a ravine. It's a more terrifying but more likely scenario. Or she could have been safely delivered to Mount Charleston, where maybe she vanished under her own terms. The Spring Mountains are vast and unforgiving. The upper elevations of Mount Charleston transform into dense forests with steep limestone cliffs box canyons, and off-trail hazards. Over the decades, the mountain has swallowed experienced hikers, aircraft, and locals alike. If Sally accepted a ride up the mountain, was dropped off at a trailhead, and went into the wilderness alone, she would have been hiking in the late afternoon. And while the temperatures at that elevation would be significantly cooler than the valley floor, the terrain has its own risks. A slip and fall, or a sudden drop in blood pressure from earlier heat exhaustion or dehydration could lead to falling. And in this area, a body hidden beneath the timberline or wedged in a limestone crevice could remain undiscovered for years. Her sisters, Amy and Lauren, have kept up a public campaign to keep her case in the media, working with the Australian consulate, the federal police, and local Nevada authorities. The family received tips from the public, including a potential sighting at Harrah's Casino on the Strip. One of her sisters traveled to Las Vegas, staying at the Retreat on Charleston Peak, driving up and down Kyle Canyon Road to trace Sally's route, hiking off trail in desperation to find a discarded bag or a scrap of clothing. Her luggage sits untouched in the storage room of Bungalows Hostel. Her seat on the flight back to Melbourne was empty. The canine scent trail ends at the ravine, leaving only two possibilities. She was either taken by the geography of the mountain, or she was taken by a person. The desert refuses to give an answer.